Second hour right here, the Jack Blood Show, American Freedom Radio, deadlinelive.info, 22112. That's hard to write, especially if you have lystexia like me. I'm Jack Blood. Great being back on the air, great being with you today, and really great having such a timely guest as Kurt Haskell, who joins us now. Kurt actually does his own radio show. He had a life-changing incident when he was on the plane, one of the passengers with the underwear bomber who was recently just convicted in a very weird sentence after a very weird trial. Just like a lot of us, going along with his business, living his life, and all of a sudden he finds himself in the middle of an international news story and getting a close-up view on how the international war on terrorism and our so-called homeland security works in this country. Kurt Haskell joins us here on the Jack Blood Show. Kurt, great having you.
Glad to be here, Jack.
All right, Kurt, great having you. My bad. I'm coming back to radio, and I forget all these little buttons I got to push sometimes. Thanks for you know how it is now, right? Thanks for joining us. Well, what do you I don't know where you want to start here. Maybe we should recap just a little bit. We had you on just after this incident, and I was really trying to get you guys some publicity out there because this whole thing was just snowballing with the underwear bomber. And, you know, before we're, have some TSA agents' hands in our underpants, I wanted to make sure people understood the whole depth and breadth of this story. But you found yourself in Amsterdam heading back to the United States of America, and there you are sitting and waiting to get on your plane, and then you see Abdullah Al-Matab, the underwear bomber. And why don't you pick it up from there and give people a few of the PowerPoints on exactly what you saw and what happened?
Sure. Lori and I were sitting at the gate, the boarding gate. We're sitting on the floor playing cards, and I saw, I'll just call him Umar for short, Umar walking up to the desk by the gate, and he caught my eye because he had on a white T-shirt and jeans in the middle of winter, and he looked kind of poor, and he was walking with another man who looked kind of wealthy. He had on a tan suit. He looked like he was from India to me or some country over there. And they're walking together, so I was just people watching as we waited. And they went up to the desk together, and just the Indian man spoke. And this is what he said. He said, this man needs to get on the flight, but he doesn't have a passport. And then the airline worker at the counter said, well, you have to have a passport to get on the flight. And the Indian man then said, he's from Sudan. We do this all the time, and kind of argued with her. And she still didn't let Umar on the plane, but she sent the two of them down a hallway to talk to a manager, a hallway in a secure area where nobody else could go, unescorted. Sent the two of them down there. And this Indian man spoke perfect American English without an accent. And that's when I quit watching, when they went down the hallway. I didn't really think much of it, except, this guy won't be getting on the plane. So, it didn't mean anything to me at the time. But then a few hours later, as we're coming in to land in Detroit, Umar tried to blow up our plane, and even though his bomb didn't go off, it started a fire. And the fire burned 2 seats, the floor, and about 7 feet up the wall, 8 feet up the wall to the ceiling, and it was spreading pretty quick. And it burned for maybe a minute or so, maybe 2 minutes, and it had to be put out with a fire extinguisher. And
from day one,
there wasn't much of a skirmish. One passenger grabbed Umar and hauled him off in the first class area, and there wasn't much of a fight. He just kind of grabbed him and pulled him away. So at that point, I didn't even know if it was a terrorist attack or maybe like an electrical fire or what. I don't know. But I didn't get a good look at Umar then, not until after we landed in Detroit. And we landed in Detroit, and then things kept getting more weird because I thought we would do an emergency evacuation of the plane. That's not what happened. We taxied right up to the terminal, like any other flight. Law enforcement came on our plane. They told us all to sit down and be quiet, that we weren't getting off the plane. We sat there for about 20 or 30 minutes. Now, mind you, there's powder everywhere and pieces of the bomb, some of it in the aisle, the left aisle. This plane had 2 aisles. And nobody seemed concerned for our safety. No one checked for accomplices. Nobody checked for other bombs. Nobody checked for anything. The police officers didn't even come to our section. They all stayed in the first class area. And at some point, Umar was taken off the flight in handcuffs, and he stood in the aisle for maybe 30 seconds before he got off the flight in the left aisle. But that's when I got a good look at him again. And I turned to my wife, Lori, who was sitting next to me, and I said, holy cow, I think I saw something important before we boarded. I saw the same guy. And Umar then got off the flight, and as he was getting off the flight, he apparently said, at least this is what airport workers say, and I didn't hear it, but he said there's another bomb on the plane. Despite him saying that, nobody checked for another bomb, and we were all allowed to take our carry-on bags off the plane without them being checked or anything, to see if there's another bomb. We're taken into the terminal, which had been evacuated. We had one entire floor for only passengers of our flight. We were told to stand along the wall. Now, as we stood there for about an hour with all of our carry-on bags, again, unchecked for a bomb, even though Umar said there's another bomb on board. After an hour, bomb-sniffing dogs were brought around. One of them sniffed something in the bag of a second Indian man. This guy had on an orange shirt, and he's sometimes called the man in orange. But anyway, he looked Indian too, but he was much younger, maybe 20 years younger than the first guy. This guy was taken off to a side room for questioning. He was held there for about an hour. He wasn't handcuffed yet, but when he came out, a police officer handcuffed him and led him away. Just as that was done, another police officer came up to the rest of us and said, I'm sure that you've seen what has just happened. You're not safe here. We need to take you to another area. And they escorted us out of this room and took us into a hallway. And we stood in this hallway for a few more hours until an officer came up to the rest of us and said, we now have those, plural, those, responsible for this in custody. Each of you will have to do a quick interview with the FBI, and then you'll be free to leave. And it was during this interview with the FBI that I told them my story on what I had seen in Amsterdam. So at this point, I'm thinking I'm helping catch an accomplice. You know, I had no idea.
Doing your patriotic duty, Kurt.
Right. I was an eyewitness to this accomplice. I didn't know if anyone else had seen him, and I was trying to help the FBI identify the man. So, you know, at this point, I'm just trying to help. But what happened after that soon became obvious to me that the FBI did not want to identify this man. And the entire picture now, 2 years later, has become very clear to me, and I think to anyone that looks at the evidence in the case. So, did you want me to go on from there?
Well, no, and that's great, and everything you said, I mean, we did this last time with you. We kind of picked it all apart and had you elaborate on that, and we've actually posted that at deadlinelive.info. You'll find it in the Vintage Jack Blood section, so you can go back and listen to that all again. But just to put everything into context, I wanted you to just retell the high points of the story. And when you talk about, you know, the guy says there's another bomb, but no one checks for a bomb. When you're trying to give them evidence of what happened the Christmas Day, for the Christmas Day underwear bomber, and no one really wants to listen to your story, and they seem to already know the story. And one of the things I didn't think I heard you say this time was there were people filming this whole thing happening on the plane, and they weren't. The film didn't seem to be confiscated, and they didn't seem to be approached or debriefed by the FBI, if I remember your story.
Yeah, I didn't mention that because I have talked to the man that filmed it since then several times, and it's my opinion that he's not involved. So that's why I haven't mentioned it. I think it's a red herring. Maybe I'm wrong, but he seems credible to me, and I think he was just wrong place, wrong time, filming something. But maybe I'm wrong. But
no, thanks for putting everything on the record. That's what we do here. So we're not here to be biased in any way, shape, or form. We want it all out there and then let people decide. Okay, so yesterday on our show, we had one of the witnesses for the Hatari trial, which is going on in Michigan right now as well. Speaking of Detroit and Michigan, it seems like that's where all this stuff happens. And it is really one of the biggest trials right now, hanging what I know to be majorly innocent people who were infiltrated by the FBI and entrapped into, at least one of them, into creating this government plot and taking cash in exchange and cozying up to an infiltrator. So it's interesting that we would have you on here the next day because you were part of the underwear bombers trial and you weren't really able to get your story out. The story that you just told here to the world on our radio show, you weren't able to tell to the American court, or you were, but it wasn't submitted into evidence, and certainly because the underwear bomber, as drugged up as he might have been, took a plea deal. Why would you take a plea deal for life in prison, 14 stories underground for the rest of your life? I don't know. But his story really didn't get out, and you were the one to really kind of provide these missing pieces of the puzzle. Could you go back and tell us how this went with you in the trial, because we haven't talked to you since then?
Yeah, Jack, if you don't mind, can I pick up where I left off? Because there was a whole lot that happened in between the incident and the trial.
Yeah, do what you got to do, Kurt. I want to get the story out here.
I just want to pick up on the timeline because I think it's important. So, what happened after we landed, the FBI came and visited me 3 days later, and I asked them, hey, did you bring the airport security video? I'd like to help you identify the man that helped him through security and board without a passport. No response. The two agents did kind of a half head turn to each other in a brief, under their breath chuckle, like, we're not here to talk about that. They didn't say that, but that's kind of an impression I got. It was very weird. They showed me a series of pictures. None of them included the man that I saw helping him board without a passport or the man taken into custody after we landed. I thought that was very strange. And the media reports from the government as to the man in the suit that helped him board without a passport, that the government watched over 200 hours of security video footage, and there was no accomplice whatsoever, which I knew was a complete lie from the start, but that was the official position. Yeah. In regards to the second man they took into custody after he landed, the government changed their story on him 6 times, 6 different versions, because each lie was proved to be not credible. They would say that he was taken into custody due to an immigration violation. And again, I was there when a bomb-sniffing dog sniffed something in his bag, so I knew that was a lie. And then they said he was from another flight, which I knew was also a lie because we were the only ones on this floor, et cetera, et cetera. 6 different stories. So red flags were coming up with me very early on.
Do you believe an accomplice could have escaped here?
Could have? No. Well,
I wanted to make sure. At
that time, I did. At that time. Since I've changed my opinion.
All right.
But that's what I thought initially. I was trying to help them catch this accomplice. But I soon found out that's not what really happened. You see, a month after this happened, ABC News came out with an article where the government now admitted the existence of this man in Amsterdam helping Umar. But their version was that he was there because Umar got cold feet when boarding, and he was Al-Qaeda. And that's impossible with my account, because he went up to the desk and said, he needs to board without a passport. We do this all the time. Now, obviously, if you're Al-Qaeda, you're not going up to an airline worker and saying, hey, we do this all the time. We're Al-Qaeda. It's impossible. He was a government worker of some sort. I didn't know the extent at this time. But in late January 2010, they had congressional hearings on this matter, and Patrick Kennedy from the State Department admitted that the government knew Umar was a terrorist, they were tracking him, and they intentionally let him into the U.S. so that they could follow him and catch accomplices after he landed here in the U.S. Now, that's on record in Congress. You can actually watch the video of his testimony on YouTube, Patrick Kennedy. They were still lying somewhat, though, because Patrick Kennedy then says there's more to it, but we need to talk about it in closed session. What they didn't tell you, or what was told in closed session, in my opinion, was that they also gave him an intentionally defective bomb to stage a fake terrorist attack. Now, this is how I discovered that. I kept going to all the hearings because of these anomalies. I wanted to figure out what was really going on. And, you know, I went to a hearing when the government asked that the judge not turn over the evidence to Umar's standby attorney. He fired his real attorneys, but Judge Edmonds gave him a standby attorney who's just basically a helper. Here's what the government said. We can't give the evidence to the standby attorney. His name Chambers, Anthony Chambers. We can't give him the evidence because he doesn't have the attorney-client privilege which would allow third parties to subpoena him and have the evidence turned over to third parties. And if third parties got the evidence, they could use it to sue the government. And here I am sitting wondering, why would the government be concerned about being sued in this case? What wrongdoing had they done?
Well, it sounds like, let me just say this, because they use this all the time. We saw this, all of this took place in the 1993 World Trade Center bombing. Something very similar allegedly took place in the 9/11 bombings, and some suppose that this also happened in Oklahoma City. And what we always find is this incompetence theory being used, where, well, we've got to protect ourselves because a lot of people blew it and didn't do their jobs and we're just incompetent, so that's why we're protecting ourselves. I'm sure you've heard that before.
Exactly. But again, this is on video. They just won't release the video. You know, I've been screaming for the release of the airport video for over 2 years now, and it's fallen on deaf ears.
We've been asking for the videos of the planes hitting the Pentagon for many.
I'm sure they're in the same vault somewhere.
Right. And I've actually personally asked Janet Reno, former Attorney General, on the air about the tapes from Oklahoma City at the Murrow building, and she said she was unaware of any tapes, any surveillance video at a federal building in Oklahoma. So that's kind of where they're at with that.
Yeah, ridiculous. Anyway, I went to another hearing, and at this one, Anthony Chambers stood up and said, look, I need some extra time to prepare for the trial. The prosecutors have just dumped the most important evidence on the case on me, and I need time to look at it and hire some experts. And
hold on right there, Kurt. I got to go to break here, so We'll pick up right there when we come back. Kurt Haskell is with us. He's on Blog Talk Radio. We'll give you that information as well. The Jack Blood Show. Stay with us.
What would your life be like if you woke up each morning with new vitality, feeling better than you have in years, and you noticed a difference in your sleeping patterns, blood sugar levels, and had a sense of well-being overall? There's something that is changing thousands of people's lives, and you could be one of them. It's called Heart and Body Extract. Sharon Harris, co-creator of Heart and Body Extract, talks about the positive effects of Heart and Body Extract.
What happens with the formula Heart and Body Extract is it's giving the body the necessary vitamins, minerals, amino acids, enzymes, and phytonutrients so the body will heal itself. And yes, the body does have the ability to balance blood pressure, balance cholesterol, clean and unclog the arteries. It can also work on balancing the circulation for diabetics. So the body is an amazing thing. It simply needs some help so it has the tools to heal itself.
Heart and Body Extract gets results. To order your 2-month supply, call now, toll-free at 866-295-5305. Order online at hbextract.com.
Do you realize every day we are being put under constant stress from wireless radiation? What's worse is that you don't even know that it's happening. It puts as much stress on our body as if we had a constant viral infection, draining our energy and sapping our strength, or just making us irritable and fatigued. These wireless fields are being emitted from computers, microwaves, mobile phones, power lines, and any electrical appliance. Now there is a solution. A group of research engineers in New Zealand have come up with an active shielding device that shields you from wireless radiation at a cellular level. Blue Shield comes in 3 models, a household, portable, and USB that plugs into any computer. The great thing about Blue Shield is it is very affordable and guaranteed to last. A one-off purchase will see you being protected for years to come. Visit AmericanFreedomRadio.com and click on the Blue Shield banner. Blue Shield, brought to you by the VinnyEastwoodShow.com.
But there's a reason. There's a reason. There's a reason for this. There's a reason education sucks, and it's the same reason that it will never, ever, ever be fixed. It's never going to get any better. Don't look for it. Be happy with what you got. Because the owners of this country don't want that. I'm talking about the real owners now. The real owners, the big wealthy business interests that control things and make all the important decisions. Forget the politicians. The politicians are put there to give you the idea that you have freedom of choice. You don't. You have no choice. You have owners. They own you. They own everything. They own all the important land. They own and control the corporations. They've long since bought and paid for the Senate, the Congress, the state houses, the city halls. They got the judges in their back pockets. And they own all the big media companies, so they control just about all of the news and information you get to hear. They spend billions of dollars every year lobbying to get what they want.
Years of economic earthquakes have shaken our confidence in stocks, real estate, currencies, even nations. Gold has become a safe haven, a universally respected investment that preserves and grows wealth in today's debt-addicted world. According to Swiss America, the key to surviving economic earthquakes is maintaining and growing your standard of living. Rising government spending and taxes almost ensure higher gold prices for years to come. The good news? You can protect your family and future, even if the euro crashes and a tidal wave of inflation devalues our dollar. Your first step to safety is to read Swiss America's latest white paper, Remaking Money. It's free when you call today, 800-289-2646, 800-BUYCOIN, or go to SwissAmerica.com, or download the new Swiss America app at iTunes. That's 800-289-2646, 800-289-2646, 800-BUYCOIN. Call Swiss America, the gold standard.
Yo, what's up? Check this out.
The voice of the revolution. American Freedom Radio. American Freedom Radio.
Your life, as it has been, is over. Radio Free Humanity on AFR. Listen to The Paradigm Shift, Saturday night, 10 p.m. Central.
Robert, independent caller in Austin, Texas. Good morning.
Good morning. It's amazing how much different information on this underwear bomber there is. This guy never had a visa. The gentleman was let on the plane, literally forced. They tried to keep him off the plane, and two attorneys who have just submitted, you can go look on YouTube, said that he was let on the plane forcibly. He was denied access to that airplane 2 or 3 times in some unnamed office in the U.S. government. And you should look this up, sir. They let him on that plane forcibly. He was not allowed to be on that plane, and somebody put him on that plane. Now, why would a CIA agent, the unnamed agency, want to get that guy on the plane?
I'm not familiar with the story of anybody attempting to stop him. My understanding is that the PETN that the underwear bomber was carrying was not detectable by the standard screening that he went through at Amsterdam, and that he, what I've heard is that he raised no alarm. I wasn't there, obviously, so I don't know.
Chuck in Jacksonville, Florida, independent caller. Good morning. Oh, sorry, I moved to that. Let's go on to Devin. We already hit Chuck. Devin, Republican in Derry, New Hampshire. Good morning, Devin.
Good morning.
Hi there.
I heard your guest mention the underwear bomber a little while ago, and I just wanted to mention Attorney Kurt Haskell's testimony at the Muttalib trial last week. He was a witness to the event, and he says that Muttalib didn't have a passport and wasn't going to be allowed onto that plane, except he was escorted by two men in suits who claimed national security in order to get him onto the plane. And Kurt Haskell, in his testimony, said all this. He wasn't allowed to actually be a witness to the trial because they got him to plead guilty. But I just feel that the real terrorists that we should be afraid of is our federal government, and the TSA sticking their hands down our pants isn't going to make things better. It might.
Don't appreciate that last comment, but Devin's bringing up this question that one of our earlier callers mentioned of an idea that Muttalib was somehow forced to go on the plane or was escorted by agents of some kind?
I am unfamiliar with that story. I can't say it's true or I can't say it's false. My understanding is that he was targeted for questioning by U.S. Customs and Border Protection, which was operating passenger screening for overseas passengers like Abdul Muttalib, and that they had planned to question him when he arrived in Detroit. Now, obviously, if he was successful, they wouldn't have been able to question him because he would have blown himself and 360 other people up.
Let's talk about a recent Inspector General report. Okay, let's go to Mark in Wayne, Michigan, on our independent line. Good morning, Mark.
Good morning, C-SPAN. Good morning, America. And also, good morning, Mr. McCarter.
Good morning.
Yes, I have a question about you claiming that you had no idea about that underwear bomber being helped onto that plane. I live on disability, and I even knew about that. If you've seen the evidence that I have gathered about this individual and about the warehouses that were completely filled with all of these body scanners and no airports were buying them. So then this underwear bomber thing came along, and every one of them got sold immediately. This is how they work. These elites that have hijacked the federal government are using it by use of the media, by lying to the people.
So, Mark, you're saying that there's an infrastructure in place that's geared towards making money off these crises. So Mark is claiming that it's a generated crises in order to help businesses make money.
Well, I have to say, after this program, I'm kind of interested in talking to my colleague, Tony Kimmery, who specializes in intelligence, to see if he is aware of, the stories that somebody might have helped the underwear bomber onto this plane, because I certainly am unaware of them. There's lots of accusations, government being involved in industry and various issues. I know.
Leaving home out on the road, I've been down before. Riding along on this big old jet plane, I've been thinking about my home, but my love life seems so far away.
Well, we have Kurt Haskell. Kurt Haskell, known as Kurt Rascal, if you're the Department of Homeland Security, really kind of messed up their plans for what is admitted now a false flag event over the skies Christmas Day by the underpants bomber. And, of course, a lot of those callers, very intelligent, very clued in. Mickey McCarter from Homeland Security Today, not so much. That's a famous clip now you can see at deadlinelive.info. Kurt, at least your message is getting out, and this guy had to sit and answer repeated calls based on your eyewitness reports. Thanks for being with us today.
Hey, no problem. I have to say I was absolutely thrilled by that C-SPAN video yesterday. Thrilled.
Now, do you believe that a disabled caller, a C-SPAN watcher, knows more than Mickey McCarter of Homeland Security Today? I mean, I always love this because I interviewed Oliver North once, and this is very classic. They just pretend like it didn't happen. They don't know anything, and they're just innocent, as pure as the day is by the driven snow. They just don't know about it, so they can't comment. That's convenient.
It's ridiculous. It's the guy's job to know everything about TSA, and this is probably the most major TSA event that's happened since its existence. So the guy's a liar, flat out. I mean, let's call him what he is. He knows everything about this.
He's a liar, but is he a traitor? He doesn't work for the government, allegedly. I think if we look into him a little bit more, we'll find that he does work for the government in some capacity. But if he does, then that makes him a treasonous snake, as well as being a liar, which is far more implicates far more than just lying on C-SPAN. But that's good that people are aware of this, that they're taking the time to call in. And, it's hard to get into these shows, and the phone lines are just loaded with that kind of stuff, and they really put him on the spot. Kurt Haskell with us on the Jack Blood Show today. Kurt, we left off in the last break. We so rudely had to interrupt you with our making money scams here, playing commercials. First of all, you're no longer doing the radio show, so I have to make that correction. Thank you for correcting me. And just go ahead and pick up where you left off, if you would, and then get us to this trial, because this was the biggest patsy job I've seen in a long time. And again, this is happening over and over and over again in this country. Judge Napolitano listed about 17 or 18 cases just like this that the American people really aren't buying anymore.
Yeah, it's nice that American people are finally waking up, although I'd say probably 99% of them still aren't aware of this story. But it's
That's 99% I'm hearing about. Okay.
Yeah, we're getting there. But anyway, back to another hearing I was at. Chambers asked to delay the trial because the prosecution, he said, dumped the most important evidence on him, and he needed time. This was late into this case, like last summer. And he said he needed more time to hire experts to look at the evidence and more time to go through it. And then he listed the evidence. And this is what he said was the most important evidence in the case. The airport security video and audio. A copy of Umar's passport. The chemical composition of the bomb. And then the fourth thing was a transcript of the interview from the security, I don't know what you call them, security interviewee. They have a different step of security at Amsterdam where they do a personal interview. The transcript from that person, who very well could be the man in the tan suit. So I thought that was extremely interesting because it all tied into what my account was. And Chambers said this was the most important evidence of the case. Shortly after this hearing, Chambers came out to the Detroit Free Press and said the following: I've now obtained a copy of the bomb explosives experts report that the government has hired to testify in this case, and even those reports indicate that the bomb was impossibly defective. So what did I do? I sent Chambers a fax, and I said, hey, I want you to know who I am. I don't know if you do know who I am. I have some suspicions that there's some weird things going on with the case, and I listed some out. And I said, I just want the truth to come out. If you want to contact me, please do so. And he called me within the hour, and we set up a meeting to talk. And we talked in his office a couple hours shortly thereafter. And what Chambers told me was this: there was a gag order over all the evidence where nobody could talk about it. So he told me he couldn't talk about the evidence at all. But I asked him this question. You know what my theory on the case is. Do you think I'm some kind of conspiracy nut? And he said, not at all. I can assure you everyone here takes your report very strongly. And, we think something similar to that is going on. And then he went on to say Umar had been offered very lenient plea deals, that the government just wanted the case to go away, but Umar, to that point, had turned down all the plea deals. So then fast forward to the trial. Before the trial, they had jury selection hearings where they called potential jurors in for questioning, and I sat in on those, and two questions kept coming up. The two questions were this: do you realize that the media sometimes lies to you? And number two was, do you think if you're selected as a juror, you'll be able to tell whether Umar actually had a bomb or an explosive device or not? So I thought that was pretty telling. At the end of the jury selection hearings, Judge Edmonds asked Umar who he planned to call as witnesses in the trial, and what he said was, I'm only calling one witness, attorney Kurt Haskell, me. The trial...
Stop right there, because that had to be pretty ominous. Can you give us a sense of just like your emotional state when you're still caught up in this thing, and you've come out and done your patriotic duty and told the truth, and now you're being called by this vicious killer that's been lambasted all throughout the media, and you've got to deal with your friends and your neighbors and your family. Can you just stop for a second and tell us how that affects you personally?
Yeah, remember, no matter what you think about this case, Umar did try and kill me. He's not innocent. So we actually had my attempted killer calling me to testify on his behalf. It's beyond strange. But I was actually pretty nervous about doing it. Obviously, I was going to do it, but I was nervous that the government might try and harm me in some way. So I was actually going to hire a full-time bodyguard until I was sent to testify, which would have been about a month into the trial. So I was kind of nervous about it because I knew something would happen where I would not be testifying. I knew they would not let me get on the stand and say what I know. So, but my answer came 5 days later. We were about maybe 2-3 hours into the trial only. The first day only lasted an hour or two, and then came back the second day. And Umar took a plea to all of the charges, guilty plea, which require a mandatory life sentence with no chance of parole. There is no way on earth anyone ever takes a plea deal to mandatory life in prison with no chance of parole.
Yeah, there's nothing to win there.
Exactly. There's no give and take there. So not only that, remember I had already been told by Chambers earlier that Umar had been offered very lenient plea deals and had turned them all down. So I knew that too. The mainstream media didn't know that, but I did. So something is not right with this plea deal. I don't know exactly what. I have
an idea. I'm going to get to that here before we're done with you, Kurt. I have a very good idea.
My suspicion is, now it could be that he's being tortured or threatened. I don't think that's it, though. The other possibility is that he was offered something like, hey, you plead guilty to this, we're going to send you to Guantanamo Bay where you can't be tracked and you'll be released, or you can serve your time in Nigeria and your dad can help get you released because he's one of
let me go ahead and roll it out for you, because this isn't something that's in the news. I caught it just by accident, and one of the reporters, I think I call them reporters, the repeaters on MSNBC, General Electric, Comcast, kind of let this slip, that he's being sent to, and I got to go by memory on this because I didn't write it down, but he's being sent to Colorado, I think, and allegedly going to serve his sentence like 13, 14 floors underground, where they say he'll never see the light of day. At that point, it would be very easy for him to be scurried out of there. A replacement can be put in, and everybody in the chain of command on a need-to-know basis can cover it up. At that point, and again, I'm really stretching it here, but I'm just trying to figure this out with you. At that point, he'd be given, they do face transplant surgeries and whatnot now, and be put right back into the system. I mean, the same thing could be at Guantanamo, as you said, because who's going to come out and say, hey, that guy, we just let him out the back door, and that's who's involved in this little incident over there. So that does kind of make sense, and it's not just a life sentence. It's not a gitmo. It's not, he's not on death row in some prison where everyone's going to see him on a regular basis. They're putting him down underground somewhere where we'll never know if he's there or not.
Exactly. And I knew, like I just said, I knew something like that was what was going on. I didn't know exactly what, but now that you mention that, it makes perfect sense. But in addition, when he took this plea, I hesitate to call it a plea deal because it wasn't really a deal. He just pleaded. He made a statement. And the statement, to me, was language that came straight from the Pentagon. It wasn't language that he typically used. It probably had words that he didn't even know the meaning of. And when I heard this statement, I immediately thought this was an exact speech that the Pentagon or government would want him to say. It was very inflammatory. It was used by the media to, further perpetrate this fraudulent war on terror. And there's no doubt in my mind that speech was written by somebody in the government. No question. The sentencing was actually last week, and since I was a victim in the case, I was allowed to make a victim impact statement, although Judge Edmonds limited us to 5 minutes each. I went over on my time a little bit. Maybe I went 7-8 minutes, but
I'm going to keep you for a few more minutes on the other side of this break, but we do have a break. Kurt Haskell is with us on the show. We're talking about the case of the underwear bomber. Stay with us. The Jack Blood Show, American Freedom Radio.
Now you and your family and friends can enjoy the cleanest, most delicious, and healthy drinking water anytime, even while traveling, camping, at sporting events, or in emergency situations. The Berkey Light removes bacteria, cysts, parasites, and harmful chemicals to below detectable levels. It also reduces nitrates and unhealthy minerals like lead and mercury, while leaving in the beneficial and nutritional minerals your body needs. Berkey Light is so powerful, it can even purify raw, untreated water from remote lakes and streams. And the optional PF2 filters even remove fluoride. The Berkey Light LED, with its rechargeable lighting system, can be used as a nightlight or a camp light. To view or purchase your Berkey water system and replacement filters, please visit American Freedom Radio's website at AmericanFreedomRadio.com. and click the Berkey banner. Once again, that's AmericanFreedomRadio.com and click the Berkey Water banner. Not yet available in Iowa.
The First Amendment in the Bill of Rights limits the government's power by ensuring freedom of speech and preserves the rights of the people. Every day that passes, our rights gradually slip away. It's time to take a stand and let the government know that we are tired of losing our rights. LibertyStickers.com will allow you to express your rights and allow millions of people to see you stand up for what you believe in. LibertyStickers.com carries the largest selection of bumper stickers online, ranging from political to humorous. As always, you can find your favorite stickers that protest the war and the president. Don't see what you're looking for? Liberty Stickers will custom make stickers that will get your message across for all Americans to see. Go to LibertyStickers.com and see pre-made stickers that will get everyone talking. That's LibertyStickers.com or call 877-873-9626. Liberty Stickers, the world's most dangerous stickers.
Just look at us. Everything is backwards. Everything is upside down. Doctors destroy health, lawyers destroy justice, universities destroy knowledge, governments destroy freedom, the major media destroys information, and religions destroy spirituality. I think there's more to know here.
All you ever hear about in this country is our differences. That's all the media and the politicians are ever talking about, the things that separate us, things that make us different from one another. That's the way the ruling class operates in any society. They try to divide the rest of the people. They keep the lower and the middle classes fighting with each other so that they, the rich, can run off with all the money. Fairly simple thing happens to work. If you know anything different, that's what they're going to talk about. Race, religion, ethnic and national background, jobs, income, education, social status, sexuality, anything they can do, keep us fighting with each other so that they can keep going to the bank.
SwissAmerica.com reports the financial markets are closed in observance of President's Day. But here's an excerpt from a relevant story by Craig Smith from back in 2001. On this President's Day holiday, may we all stop for a few moments and reflect on our rich American heritage, regardless of our political or religious convictions. You know, the United States Capitol has a private chapel for congressmen. One features the glass-stained window depicting George Washington kneeling at Valley Forge, praying to God for his soldiers and country, which is referred to Washington's Gethsemane. President Washington refused to take sides in religious disputes and believed the United States government should not favor any particular religious body. He did, however, believe religion was an essential pillar of society, though not limited to a particular denomination. Visit us at SwissAmerica.com. You can read what his first order that he issued when he took command in July 4th, 1775, or at SwissAmerica.com.
You're listening to the future of talk. American Freedom Radio. This is American Freedom Radio.
Truth Brigade Radio, live Monday through Friday, 7 to 9 p.m., only on AmericanFreedomRadio.com. The truth has just gotten hotter.
I looked under chairs, I looked under tables, I tried to find the key to 50 million fables. They call me the speaker. Get to get what I'm after till the day I die.
Well, hopefully it won't take that long. Great having you with us today, folks. The Jack Blood Show, only on American Freedom Radio, deadlinelive.info. The archives of this show every morning put right up on American Freedom Radio and then transferred over to deadlinelive.info if you missed the show. Pretty serious topics for the morning, isn't it? But it's just so amazing that we have access to all these great people that we've had on the show so far, and I just love taking advantage of it, but not them. So we've got to get Kurt out of here real quick. Kurt Haskell has joined us on the show today, just doing an amazing job. laying it all out, the real story of the underwear bomber. And I've learned a few things, and I've been covering this case ever since it happened. Kurt, we'll get you out of here in just a few, man. Thanks again for joining us. Anything you want to add to what you've said so far?
Well, just, last week I was able to make my victim impact statement. We're only given 5 minutes each to make it, but I went on and basically said the same things I said today in a very condensed version, and I was rewarded with a scowl from Judge Edmonds, who then yelled at my wife, who gave her speech after mine, saying, hey, I don't want you talking about any government conspiracy theory in your speech. And then I was promptly ignored by the media after the hearing. Even though none of the other passengers really had anything important to say, none of the mainstream media wanted to report anything about what I had said. But
what are the other passengers? Did they ever come up to you, ever say anything, contact you, or confirm, or even pat you on the back for being so brave? I mean, what was the reaction from your fellow passengers?
I think they're kind of like the American public too. A lot of them, actually, I'd say 95% of them have never talked to anybody about this, but the few that about the case, including me or the press, but the few that have, they don't want to believe it either. They've kind of, they don't want to look at the evidence either.
Yeah.
They don't want to look at the evidence.
Because if you buy into what you're saying, and I mean, again, you were an attorney minding your own business, flying the friendly skies, and I mean, what reason would you have to make any of this up? But once you believe that, you're firmly swallowing the red pill at that point. I mean, you have a whole different perspective on American security, on the war on terror, on the loss of your liberties, and how much all that costs you. It really changes your paradigm, man. So it's one thing that if you believe it, you all of a sudden, like you have found out, become responsible for it.
Yeah, it's definitely changed how I think of things dramatically.
How do you have any faith in this security industrial complex we're surrounded by? Do you have any opinion when you go through and you get searched from the TSA after what you've been through, knowing that they let known terrorists, they put them on the planes and they give them bombs? It's got to really kind of, because I've gone through this myself, it's just completely, I have no faith in any of this anymore, and I know we've got to learn to protect ourselves here.
I'm absolutely outraged over all of this. I almost died over some political game. It's so ridiculous to me. Every time I go through TSA, I'm reminded of this and how it's all just a big sham. And the worst airport of them all is Detroit. They're just so ridiculous where this happened. And obviously, every time I fly, I have to fly through that airport. Yeah. And it's just so irritating to me.
How long do you think it'll be before the next underwear bomb or shoe bomb, what have you, actually goes off and does kill people with government fingerprints all over it?
Well, we're getting to such a point that nobody actually believes these stories anymore. You could see it last week with the one in Washington. People are just laughing about how ridiculous it is. So
they are the government that cried wolf. I mean, and if they really want us to be secure and believe in this security, they wouldn't be doing this.
Right. But remember, Jack, when you talk about 9/11, there are still probably half the population that will say, I don't believe my government would be that evil to kill people. So I think what you're going to see next, you're going to see a false flag attack that kills a lot of people, like 100,000, because they're having problems getting the population to believe these stories anymore. They don't kill anyone. They're just not credible. There will still be a large segment of the population that won't believe that the government was behind that because it will be such a heinous crime. That's my prediction.
Right. And, well, if we see something happen and we, see that it's blamed on Iran, I guess we'll kind of know what to think. This is the thing, is this woke me up, man. 9/11, I was, minding my own business for the most part and interested in news and politics, but not to the degree. And we put 10 years in investigating these guys and exposing them because of 9/11. So it actually deprogrammed me and woke me up. And I think that's true for a lot of Americans. And these things tend to backfire.
Yeah, and I just want to make one other point. The people that still, if they believe my story, believe mine, but don't believe 9/11, think about it this way, because there are some people like that. The only difference between 9/11 and the underwear bomber flight was a flight attendant with a fire extinguisher. That's it. Because without that fire extinguisher, our flight goes up in flames. And what is the story in the media the next day? Terrorist takes down plane over Detroit. My story never gets out.
Chertoff, from the former Department of Homeland Security head, intelligence czar, et cetera, involved and invested in these backscatter machines and naked scanners. They already had the contract for our suitcases. Now they've got them for our underwear. Certainly we see war profiteering here.
For sure. It's the entire war on terror to me is, I hate to say made up. I mean, there's a very small percentage of it that it's real, but let's say 99% of it's made up and exaggerated for that reason, to profit off of it. It's a $100 billion a year industry, probably more than that. I don't even know. And control. More power, more money, and that's what we have in government and all these government contractors that benefit off the war on terror. They're all in bed with each other. They're all profiting off of it and clamping down on our rights more because of it, which gives them more power. That's what it's all about.
Yeah, I'm really thankful for people like you, Kurt, because without that, we may not be able to pierce through this veil. Without you, in this case, this would have really gone through and really done a number on the minds of Americans and maybe justified these naked scanners, this phony security industrial complex. So you've just been a key player, a key part of the puzzle, Kurt, and I thank you so much for giving us the time today. And did you want to throw out a website or anything before you go, or anything?
Just... You know, I've blogged about these events going back to Christmas Day 2009. So if any of your listeners want to look at my blog, it's a blog of Lori and I's where we talk about everything we do. So you'll have to read between other posts to get to all the underwear bomber posts. But it's haskellfamily.blogspot.com. A lot of people like it because you can see how our opinion of the case changes as time goes by, and there's a lot more detail in it than obviously what I talked about today on the show. So haskellfamily.blogspot.com.
All right, man. I appreciate you being with us. Best to you, and stay in touch, okay?
No problem. Anytime.
All right. Thanks. There he goes. Wow. Unbelievable. And I guess if we put the two interviews together, the one that he did last time and the one that we did this time, I mean, we're going to have the complete story here. So it makes you wonder as you're talking to your family, to your relatives, your coworkers, friends on the street, acquaintances, you know, how they can buy into all this and why they won't believe somebody like Kurt Haskell. And that's just one example, because we can go into the Gulf of Tonkin. We can go into the USS Liberty. We can go into the USS Maine. I mean, there's just false flag events constantly happening all the time. We've got a story from Foreign Policy, maybe not the best source in the world, at deadlinelive.info, where secret documents were revealed. And what we found out was that, in fact, just very recently, and we've heard this again and again and again, that there has been a move through with Israel and the United States to create a false flag event and blame Iran. And I'm saying that if that doesn't happen in the United States, it's going to be very difficult to back any kind of military adventure in Iran, not to mention the fact that, as we've said repeatedly, if Goldman Sachs is in Tehran and running things over there, as my friends have told me, then, you know, probably they've got to get out first. So these are things that have to happen. But it just makes you wonder how people can still buy into this, how they can believe it. And I think Kurt brought it up very poignantly, that people really don't believe it. Maybe they don't care as much as you and I do. Maybe, you know, they haven't been through it, or they haven't, you know, met this monster face to face and have, you know, got up the courage to take this thing on, this octopus. But there's just no way you can believe it. And now you see kind of why we've done what we've done all these years. We got cut off as we were going to break just a segment or two ago. The 85 things that might get you on a DHS terrorist list. That's it, deadlinelive.info. And then after hearing that, I mean, you're really going to be outraged. You're just going to be blown away. That's what it comes down to. So I just really require you to get involved out there and to be activists and to not be afraid of this. I mean, if a guy like Kurt Haskell can put everything at risk, and we do it here as well. I mean, there have been nights when we've had to sleep with a shotgun next to the bed and chairs propped up against the doors because of documents that we've had that we've revealed, or because of people that we've taken on. The Nick Berg beheading certainly comes to mind, or our exposés on chemtrails. We'll be doing that again Friday, as one of our great friends has made a great new film, and Michael Murphy will be joining us on Friday's show. We'll be talking about why in the world they're spraying, a completely different, unrelated topic. But, we've gotten in a lot of trouble in the past, and the higher you go, the more trouble there might be. I just can't imagine what it would be like to be walking in Kurt's shoes. So congratulations to him, and I really appreciate him being with us. That show will be archived. That interview will be archived. We're going to try to make a YouTube of that and get it out. Get it out everywhere. I can't believe the show's over already, and thankfully we don't have another hour because I've got a lot to do. This day in history will be archived. The entire show will be archived. Go catch us at American Freedom Radio, DeadlineLive.info. I'm Jack Blood saying be bold, and mighty forces will come to your aid. We'll see you tomorrow.
Welcome to the world's meeting place. American.
It's practically narcotic.
Freedom.
Oh, yes. I like very much.
Radio.
You're an American institution.
American Freedom Radio.
Are you suffering from issues related to angina pain, high blood pressure, congestive heart failure, unbalanced cholesterol, irregular heartbeats, clogged arteries? If so, you are not alone. Millions of people are suffering from one or more of these problems. If you'd like to live your life free of sickness, pain, and fear, live your life with increased vitality, energy, and youthfulness, and experience your body healing itself, then this might be the most important message you'll ever hear. An effective 100% organic nutritional supplement is now available. Heart and Body Extract is an exclusive formula of wild-crafted and organic herbs. It is extremely effective and starts to work within days. Get your Heart and Body Extract today by visiting heartandbody.com or by calling 866-295-5305, 866-295-5305, or heartandbody.com.
Do you realize every day we are being put under constant stress from wireless radiation? What's worse is that you don't even know that it's happening. It puts as much stress on our body as if we had a constant viral infection, draining our energy and sapping our strength, or just making us irritable and fatigued. These wireless fields are being emitted from computers, microwaves, mobile phones, power lines, and any electrical appliance. Now there is a solution. A group of research engineers in New Zealand have come up with an active shielding device that shields you from wireless radiation at a cellular level. Blue Shield comes in 3 models: a household, portable, and USB that plugs into any computer. The great thing about Blue Shield is it is very affordable and guaranteed to last. A one-off purchase will see you being protected for years to come. Visit AmericanFreedomRadio.com and click on the Blue Shield banner. Blue Shield, brought to you by the VinnyEastwoodShow.com.
What's up with these sorry politicians? Lots of art. When it's showtime, whimpering like little shih tzus. You want big cuts? Ron Paul's been screaming it for years. Budget crisis? No problem. Got $1 trillion year one. That's trillion with a T. Department of Education? Gone. Interior, Energy, HUD, Commerce? Gone. Later, bureaucrats. That's how Ron Paul rolls. Want to drain the swamp? Ron Paul. Do it.
I'm Ron Paul, and I approve this message.
Ron Paul, a visionary who predicted the financial crisis, a leader with a plan to solve it. The Paul plan? Balance the budget. Cut $1 trillion year one. Eliminate 5 federal bureaucracies. End the foreign wars and nation building. Rein in the Federal Reserve. Pay down the debt. Cut taxes to create jobs. Ron Paul, a plan to restore America now.
I'm Ron Paul, and I approve this message.
This is Sean David Morton, the host of Strange Universe Radio, and I've achieved worldwide fame for my predictions about the stock market and the global economy. Years of economic earthquakes have shaken our confidence in stocks, real estate, currencies, even the stability of nations. Our country teeters on the brink of seeming economic wreck and ruin. Everybody asks me one question: what can I do? Gold is the one investment that preserves and grows real wealth in today's debt-addicted world. Rising government spending and taxes and inflation almost guarantee higher gold prices for years to come. You can protect your family and your future even if a tidal wave of inflation devalues our dollar. Your first step to safety from the financial storm ahead is to read Swiss America's fantastic new white paper called Remaking Money. It's free when you call 800-289-2646. That's 800-BUY-COIN. Or go to SwissAmerica.com and download the new amazingly cool Swiss America app on iTunes. That's 800-289-BUY-COIN. Call Swiss America, the gold standard.
No rules. No rules. No taboo topics. No taboo topics. No fear of doom. No fear of doom. We are American Freedom Radio. American Freedom Radio.